I was at the retirement community's annual fundraiser gala, surrounded by laughter and champagne glasses, when a stranger pressed something cold into my palm. A USB drive? Watch this before you sign anything tomorrow, the man whispered, then disappeared into the crowd before I could even see his face. My son Daniel was scheduled to visit me the next morning with important papers. Papers I'd been told would simplify everything for my estate planning. That USB drive saved my life savings and exposed a betrayal that still makes my chest tighten when I think about it. I'm Robert Mitchell, 64 years old, and this is the story of how I almost lost everything to the two people I trusted most in the world. Let me back up 3 months. My wife Margaret passed away 3 years ago after 42 years of marriage. Lung cancer. Never smoked a day in her life. That kind of unfairness makes you question everything. We'd built a comfortable life together. I worked as a civil engineer for 30 years. She was a school principal. We lived modestly, saved aggressively, and invested carefully. By the time I retired at 60, we had just over $2.4 million in assets. The house in Scottsdale was paid off, worth about $800,000. We had no debt. After Margaret died, I sold our family home. Too many memories, too many empty rooms. I moved into Sunset Ridge, a retirement community in Chandler, Arizona. Not one of those nursing home places, understand. This was independent living. Nice apartments, golf course, activities, people my age who still had their wits about them. I bought a 2-bedroom unit for $350,000, kept the rest invested. My plan was simple: live comfortably, travel some, leave a good inheritance for Daniel and his family. Daniel is my only child, 38 years old, married to Rachel for 12 years. They live in Phoenix, about 20 minutes away. 2 kids, Emma, who's 9, and little Bobby, who just turned 6. Daniel works as a financial planner at a big firm downtown. Rachel does the same thing. Actually, that's how they met. They seemed successful. Nice house in a gated community, new cars every few years, the kids in private school. But I started noticing things after Margaret died. Nothing major at first. Daniel would ask detailed questions about my finances. Dad, are you sure your portfolio is properly diversified? Or have you thought about what happens if you need long-term care? Rachel would chime in with statistics about nursing home costs, about how quickly medical expenses could drain savings. I appreciated their concern, or at least I thought I did. They're financial professionals after all. Made sense they'd worry about their old man. When they suggested I give them power of attorney, just in case something happens, I hesitated. But Daniel explained it so reasonably. Dad, if you have a stroke or develop dementia, someone needs to be able to access your accounts, pay your bills, make medical decisions. Without POA, everything gets frozen. We'd have to go to court. It could take months. Meanwhile, your bills pile up, your credit gets destroyed. We're just trying to protect you. Rachel added her piece. We see this all the time with our clients, Robert. The families who plan ahead do fine. The ones who wait until there's a crisis? It's a nightmare. Legal fees, court battles, sometimes the state has to step in. They wore me down over weeks. Every visit, every phone call, they'd mention another horror story. A client whose father had a stroke, accounts frozen for 4 months. A colleague whose mother developed Alzheimer's, and the family spent $50,000 in legal fees getting conservatorship. Finally, I agreed. We scheduled an appointment with an attorney for Friday, October 13th. Daniel insisted on using their lawyer, someone they'd worked with before. She specializes in elder law, Dad. She'll make sure everything's done right. That brings me to Thursday night, October 12th, the Fundraiser Gala. Sunset Ridge throws this event every year to raise money for community improvements. This year's goal was a new fitness center. I'd bought a ticket mostly to be social. Margaret always said I was too much of a hermit. I put on my navy blazer, the one she'd bought me for our 40th anniversary, and went down to the community center. The place was packed. Must have been 200 residents and their guests. They'd decorated with fall colors, had a decent buffet, open bar. I was making small talk with Helen Fredericks, a widow from my building, when I felt someone grab my elbow. I turned. A man, maybe late 40s, wearing maintenance coveralls with Sunset Ridge staff embroidered on the chest. I'd seen him around, fixing things, doing groundskeeping. Never caught his name. Mr. Mitchell? His voice was urgent but quiet. I need to give you something. Before I could respond, he pressed the USB drive into my hand and closed my fingers around it. The metal was cold, still warm from his pocket. Watch this before you sign anything tomorrow, he said. Everything's on there. I'm sorry I had to do it this way, but I couldn't risk being seen talking to you. Wait, what are you? I started, but he was already moving away, disappearing into the crowd near the buffet table. I stood there, stupidly holding this USB drive, Helen looking at me with raised eyebrows. Friend of yours? She asked. I have no idea who that was. I spent the rest of the evening distracted, the USB drive burning a hole in my jacket pocket. What could possibly be on it? Why the secrecy? And how did this maintenance worker know about my appointment tomorrow? I left the gala early, went back to my apartment, poured myself 2 fingers of bourbon, something I rarely did anymore. Sat at my desk and stared at that USB drive for 10 minutes before I finally plugged it into my laptop. 1 folder, 3 video files, each about 5 minutes long. I clicked the first one. Security camera footage. Black and white, timestamp in the corner showing August 27th, 2024. Location tag read Sunset Ridge Maintenance Office. The angle showed a small break room, table and chairs, coffee maker in the corner, 2 people sitting at the table. My son Daniel, and a woman I didn't recognize at first, then realized was Rachel without her usual makeup and styled hair. The video had audio. So we're agreed, Daniel was saying. Once Dad signs the POA, we give it 2 months. Let him get comfortable with us handling things. 2 months minimum, Rachel replied. We start slow, just paying his bills at first, managing his investments, build the paper trail. Then we move the bulk of his assets into accounts we control. He won't notice. He barely checks his statements anymore. My hand was shaking so badly I almost knocked over my bourbon. This couldn't be real. This had to be some kind of sick joke. Rachel continued. The assisted living facility I told you about, the one in Tucson, they have memory care units. With his age and your mother's Alzheimer's history, we can make a case that he needs supervision. Will insurance cover it? Doesn't matter. We'll be managing his assets by then. $5,800 a month for memory care, but he's got the money. And once he's there, we can start liquidating. The Sunset Ridge apartment alone is worth $350,000. His investment accounts are sitting at about $1.9 million, plus whatever else he's hiding. I felt nauseous. My own son, talking about institutionalizing me, taking everything I'd worked 40 years to build. Daniel spoke again. What about his friends here? Won't they ask questions? That's the beauty of memory care, Rachel said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. Restricted visitation, doctor's orders. We'll tell everyone it's for his own protection, that seeing old friends confuses him. By the time anyone figures it out, we'll have sold everything and the money will be gone. Where are we thinking? Cayman accounts? Too obvious. I've been researching. There are better options. Singapore maybe. Some places in Eastern Europe. Once it's moved offshore, even if someone sues, good luck getting it back. The video ended. I sat there, staring at the black screen, my heart hammering so hard I thought I might actually have that stroke they'd been predicting. I clicked the second video. Same security camera, different date. September 15th. Same 2 people. This time they were reviewing documents. Rachel had a folder open, spreading papers across the table. I had Lisa draw up the POA with full authority, she was saying. Lisa must be their attorney friend. Medical, financial, everything. Once your dad signs this, we can do whatever we need to do. And she's not going to ask questions? Lisa? Please. I've sent her dozens of elderly clients. She gets $500 to witness a signature and notarize some papers. She's not going to jeopardize that relationship by asking uncomfortable questions. Daniel picked up one of the papers. What's this? Pre-signed checks from his account. I had him sign a stack last month when he was at our house, remember? He thought it was for birthday cards. We've got 20 checks, blank, except for his signature. Jesus Christ. I remembered that visit. Rachel had said something about needing signatures for the kids' school forms, and then handed me a stack of papers to sign. I'd been watching a football game, half paying attention. Signed whatever she put in front of me. Smart, Daniel said, and there was admiration in his voice. So even before the POA is official, we can start moving money. Exactly. Small amounts at first. 5,000 here, 10,000 there. Make it look like he's just spending more than usual. Old people do that. Then once the POA is signed and we've established the pattern, we go bigger. How long until we can have it all? Rachel thought for a moment. 6 months, maybe less. The key is getting him into that facility. Once he's classified as incompetent, we have complete control. We can even sell the Scottsdale house if we need to. I checked, and it's still in a trust with both your parents' names. But with POA and a doctor saying your dad isn't capable of managing his affairs, we can dissolve the trust and liquidate. What about Emma and Bobby? Daniel asked. Won't they ask about Grandpa? Kids forget. They're young. We tell them Grandpa's sick and can't have visitors. After a while, they'll stop asking. By the time they're old enough to understand, it'll be a done deal. The casual way they discussed erasing me from my grandchildren's lives made me want to vomit. The video ended. I clicked the third file, even though I wasn't sure I could handle more. This one was dated October 6th, just 6 days ago. Same location, Daniel and Rachel again, but this time there was a third person. A man in his 50s, wearing a doctor's white coat. Dr. Patterson, thanks for meeting us, Rachel said. Of course. You said you had a situation that needed delicate handling? My father-in-law, Daniel explained. He's showing signs of cognitive decline, memory issues, confusion, poor judgment. We're concerned he's becoming a danger to himself. This was complete fiction. I wasn't confused. I wasn't having memory issues. I'd beaten Daniel at chess 3 weeks ago. Dr. Patterson nodded sympathetically. How old is he? 64. That's young for dementia, but not unheard of. Early onset runs in families. His mother had Alzheimer's. Margaret's mother did have Alzheimer's, but Margaret never showed a single symptom before the cancer took her. We need documentation, Rachel said, for the assisted living facility. They require a doctor's assessment stating he needs supervision. Dr. Patterson frowned. I'd need to examine him first, run some cognitive tests. Would $5,000 help expedite the process? Rachel asked bluntly. There was a pause. Doctor? Patterson looked uncomfortable, then resigned. I'd need to see him at least once. Can you bring him to my office? We can do that, Daniel said. How detailed does the assessment need to be? Basic cognitive screening. I'll say I'm concerned about his capacity to manage finances and healthcare decisions independently. Recommend supervised living. That should be sufficient for the facility. And you'll backdate it? Rachel asked. We need it to look like he's been declining for a while. I can date the assessment for, let's say, 3 months ago, early July. That'll give you the documentation timeline you need. They discussed a few more details. Payment in cash. The report would be ready within 48 hours of the office visit. Dr. Revin D. Levin. Patterson even suggested specific language to use that would make it nearly impossible for me to contest the findings later. The video ended. I sat in my apartment, in the dark, trying to process what I'd just seen. My son and daughter-in-law had spent months planning to steal everything from me. They'd bribed a doctor. They'd forged documents. They were going to lock me away in a facility and tell my grandchildren I was too sick for visitors. And tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, I was supposed to meet them at an attorney's office and sign papers that would make it all legal. I drank the rest of my bourbon in one burning swallow. Then I poured another. My hands were still shaking. Who was the man who gave me this USB drive? How did he get this footage? And what was I supposed to do now? I barely slept. Spent most of the night replaying those videos, making sure I hadn't misunderstood somehow. But no, it was clear. This was premeditated fraud. Elder abuse. Probably half a dozen other crimes I couldn't even name. At 6:30 in the morning, I was sitting in my kitchen drinking coffee when someone knocked on my door. I froze. Daniel wasn't supposed to pick me up until 9:30. Who would be here this early? I looked through the peephole. The maintenance worker from last night. Same coveralls, same serious expression. I opened the door. Mr. Mitchell, I'm Tim Sanders. I'm sorry about last night, but I couldn't risk your son seeing us talk. Can I come in? We need to discuss what happens next. I let him in, poured him coffee. We sat at my kitchen table, and Tim told me his story. I've worked at Sunset Ridge for 8 years, he began. Maintenance, security, little bit of everything. Before this, I spent 20 years in IT security for a major bank. I know how to spot financial fraud, and I know how to install security cameras. The videos, I said. I installed cameras in the maintenance break room 6 months ago after we had some theft issues, tools going missing, that kind of thing. The cameras are hidden, nobody knows they're there except me and the facility manager. I review the footage periodically. And you saw my son? Tim nodded. August 27th. They were using our break room because they thought it was private. No residents ever go back there. But I saw them on camera, and something about their conversation didn't sit right with me, so I started paying attention. Downloaded those 3 meetings. When I heard them mention tomorrow's attorney appointment, I knew I had to get that footage to you. Why not just call me, or send an email? Because I don't know if they're monitoring your communications. Your son's a financial planner. He could have access to your email, your phone records. I needed to give you that footage in a way that couldn't be traced. Smart. This man was smart. What do I do now? I asked. Do I just not show up tomorrow? No, Tim said. You need to go to that appointment, but you also need to go to the police first. He pulled out a business card. This is Detective Maria Hernandez. She works white-collar crime with the Phoenix PD. I already reached out to her, showed her the videos. She wants to meet with you this morning, 8 o'clock, at the station. I looked at the card, then at Tim. Why are you doing this? You don't even know me. Tim's expression darkened. My mother died 5 years ago. Dementia. She was in a care facility for 18 months before she passed. During that time, my brother, who had her power of attorney, drained her accounts. $300,000. Gone. By the time I found out, he'd spent most of it. The attorney said we could sue, but what was the point? The money was gone. My brother went to jail for 2 years, but my mother died thinking she was broke, that she'd become a burden. I couldn't help her, but I can help you. I had to swallow hard against the emotion rising in my throat. Thank you, I managed. Thank you, Tim. We went to the police station together. Detective Hernandez was mid-40s, sharp eyes, no-nonsense demeanor. We sat in an interview room, and I showed her the USB drive. She watched all 3 videos, taking notes. This is solid evidence, she said when the videos ended. Conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted elder abuse, bribery of a medical professional. We can work with this. What do I do? I asked. You go to that attorney appointment, she said. Act normal. Don't let them know you suspect anything. We'll have an undercover officer nearby, and we'll be recording everything. If they try to pressure you into signing anything, if they make any statements that corroborate what's on these videos, we'll have additional evidence. And then? Then we arrest them. She explained the process. I'd wear a wire, a recording device hidden under my shirt. The attorney's office was in a public building, so they could have plainclothes officers positioned nearby. Once Daniel and Rachel incriminated themselves sufficiently, the officers would move in. What if they get suspicious? I asked. What if they realize I know? Detective Hernandez looked at me seriously. Mr. Mitchell, I'm not going to lie to you. There's some risk. But these people are planning to steal over $2 million from you and lock you away in a facility. The risk of doing nothing is far greater. She was right. I knew she was right. They fitted me with a wire at 8:45. Tiny microphone clipped inside my shirt collar, transmitter pack taped to my lower back. Detective Hernandez tested it, gave me instructions. Act natural. Don't ask leading questions. Just let Daniel and Rachel talk. Tim drove me to the attorney's office. It was in a professional building in downtown Phoenix, 10th floor. We arrived at 9:50. Tim squeezed my shoulder before I got out of the car. You've got this, he said. I'll be right here. The elevator ride up felt like it took an hour. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure the wire would pick up every beat. The doors opened, and there was Daniel in the waiting room, looking at his phone. Hey, Dad, he said, standing up to hug me. Right on time. I hugged him back, trying not to think about those videos. This man had plotted to steal everything from me, to lock me away, to erase me from his children's lives. Where's Rachel? I asked. She's inside with Lisa already, getting everything set up. Should just be a few minutes. We sat in uncomfortable chairs, making small talk about the weather, about the grandkids. Daniel seemed relaxed, normal, no indication he was about to commit fraud. Maybe he'd done this before. Maybe I wasn't his first victim. The receptionist called us back at 10:05. Lisa Chen's office was tastefully decorated. Law degree on the wall, family photos on her desk. She stood to shake my hand. Mid-30s, professional, friendly smile. Rachel was already seated, and she stood to hug me. "Hi, Robert. Thanks for coming in." We all Saturday. Lisa opened a folder, pulled out papers. "So, Mr. Mitchell, Daniel, and Rachel have explained what we're here for today. This is a durable power of attorney document that will give them authority to handle your financial and medical affairs in the event you become incapacitated. Let me walk you through the provisions." She started reading the document aloud, explaining in boring legalese. Meanwhile, Daniel and Rachel sat there looking supportive and concerned. The perfect loving family. When Lisa finished, she slid the document across her desk. "Do you have any questions?" This was it. My moment. Detective Hernandez had told me to ask questions, to give Daniel and Rachel opportunities to incriminate themselves. "Just to be clear," I said slowly, "this gives Daniel and Rachel complete control over all my accounts and medical decisions?" "That's correct," Lisa said. "They'll have full authority to manage your finances, make healthcare choices, access all your accounts and assets." "And I can revoke it any time?" "Legally, yes. But the purpose of this document is for situations where you may not be capable of making that decision." I turned to Daniel. "What made you think I need this right now? I mean, I'm only 64. I'm healthy. Why the rush?" Daniel exchanged a glance with Rachel. She gave him a tiny nod. "Dad, we need to be honest with you," Daniel said, his voice gentle. "We've noticed some concerning things. Memory lapses, confusion. We're worried about you." "Give me an example." Rachel spoke up. "2 weeks ago, you called me 3 times in one day, asking the same question about Emma's school schedule. You didn't remember the previous conversations." Complete lie. "I'd never called her about Emma's school schedule." "And last month," Daniel added, "you missed your doctor's appointment. When I asked about it, you insisted you'd never made an appointment, but I'd been there when you scheduled it." Another lie. "I'd never missed an appointment." "We love you, Dad," Rachel said, reaching across to pat my hand. "We just want to make sure someone can help you if things get worse. Early onset dementia runs in families. Your mother-in-law had Alzheimer's." There it was. The same story from the videos. "So you think I have dementia?" I asked. "We think you're showing early signs," Daniel said carefully, "and we think it's responsible to have these protections in place, for your own good." "What happens after I sign this?" "Nothing changes," Rachel assured me. "You keep living your life. We just step in if and when you need help. And if I needed to go into a care facility, you'd make that decision?" "Only if it became necessary," Daniel said. "Only if you couldn't safely live independently anymore." I looked at the papers, at the pen Lisa had placed next to them. Then I looked at my son. "What's in Tucson?" I asked. Daniel's face went pale. "What?" "You mentioned a facility in Tucson, memory care unit, $5,800 a month. What made you look into facilities before we even had this conversation?" Rachel recovered faster than Daniel. "We're financial planners, Robert. We research these things for clients all the time. We happened to see information about that facility, and we thought it was good to know about options." "Options for locking me away while you liquidate my assets?" The room went dead silent. Lisa looked confused. Daniel's face had gone from pale to red. "Dad, I don't know what you're talking about." "Singapore or Eastern Europe?" I interrupted. "Where were you planning to move the money offshore?" Rachel stood up. "I think we should go, Daniel." "Sit down, Mrs. Mitchell," a new voice said. Detective Hernandez walked into the office, followed by 2 uniformed officers. She held up her badge. "Phoenix Police Department. Daniel Mitchell, Rachel Mitchell, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit elder abuse and attempted financial fraud." What followed was chaos. Daniel shouting that this was a misunderstanding, Rachel demanding to call a lawyer, Lisa Chen backing away from her desk looking horrified. The officers reading them their rights, putting them in handcuffs. Daniel looked at me, his face a mixture of anger and disbelief. "Dad, how could you do this? We're family." I stood up, my hands surprisingly steady now. "You stopped being my family when you chose my money over my life." They led them out. Detective Hernandez stayed behind to get Lisa Chen's statement. Turned out she'd had no idea about the fraud. She'd legitimately thought this was a standard POA. She cooperated fully, handed over all her communications with Daniel and Rachel. Tim was waiting in the lobby when I came down. He drove me back to Sunset Ridge, didn't say much, let me process. When we pulled up to my building, I finally spoke. What happens now? Now you get a good attorney, Tim said. Not like Lisa Chen, a real attorney who specializes in elder law and fraud. The detective will recommend someone. You'll need to secure your accounts, revoke any previous permissions you gave Daniel or Rachel, change all your passwords, PINs, everything. And the criminal case? That'll take time. Months, probably. But with those videos and today's recording, the prosecution has a strong case. I sat in the car for a moment longer. Tim, I don't know how to thank you. You already did, he said. By letting me help. I couldn't save my mother, but I could save you. The next few weeks were a blur. I hired an attorney recommended by Detective Hernandez, a woman named Patricia Vance who specialized in elder fraud. She helped me lock down every account, every asset. We discovered that Daniel and Rachel had already stolen $32,000 using those pre-signed checks. Patricia filed civil suits to recover that money and damages. The criminal case moved forward. Dr. Patterson, faced with the video evidence, took a plea deal and agreed to testify. He'd done this before, it turned out. Falsified assessments for 5 other families, always for cash. The state medical board revoked his license. Lisa Chen cooperated fully and wasn't charged, though her law firm fired her for not doing proper due diligence on her clients. The hardest part was Emma and Bobby. I wanted to see my grandchildren, but they were caught in the middle of this nightmare. Daniel and Rachel had told them I was sick, that I'd falsely accused them of terrible things. It would be months before I could even talk to them, and years before they'd understand what really happened. The trial was in March. Daniel and Rachel both took plea deals rather than face a jury. Daniel got 6 years in state prison, Rachel got 5. They'll be eligible for parole in 3, but the judge made it clear that any violation of parole terms would result in maximum sentences. Part of the plea agreement required them to pay restitution for the stolen $32,000, plus damages. They'll be paying that debt for the rest of their lives. I stayed at Sunset Ridge. Tim and I became friends. Real friends. He introduced me to his wife, his kids. We play chess every Thursday. He still works maintenance at the community, but he also started a side business helping seniors secure their digital assets and finances. Turns out there's a real need for that. Patricia Vance helped me set up an ironclad trust with independent trustees. No single person can access my assets. It's managed by a team of professionals who have no personal relationship with me. When I die, everything goes to Emma and Bobby in trusts they'll access when they turn 25. Daniel and Rachel get nothing. I've started volunteering with a senior advocacy group, helping other elderly people recognize the warning signs of financial abuse. You'd be surprised how common this is. Children, relatives, even professional caregivers, systematically stealing from vulnerable people. Last month, Emma turned 10. She sent me a birthday card, cautious and confused. Daniel's parents apparently told her some version of events, trying to explain why Grandpa pressed charges. I wrote her back, just saying I loved her, and I'd be here whenever she was ready to talk. It'll take time, maybe years, but I'm a patient man. I think about that night at the Fundraiser gala a lot. That moment when Tim pressed the USB drive into my hand. How different my life would be if he hadn't done that. I'd be in a memory care facility in Tucson right now, alone, confused, while my son and daughter-in-law spent my money on vacations and cars. People ask me if I regret having Daniel arrested, if I wish I'd just cut him off instead, handled it privately. The answer is no. What he and Rachel planned wasn't just theft, it was erasure. They wanted to steal my autonomy, my dignity, my relationships with my grandchildren. They wanted to lock me away and pretend I didn't exist except as a source of money. That's not something you handle privately. That's something you stop with every tool you have. I'm 65 now. I'm healthy, sharp, independent. I wake up every morning in my apartment at Sunset Ridge, make my coffee, and feel grateful. Grateful for Tim's courage. Grateful for Detective Hernandez's competence. Grateful that I saw those videos before I signed those papers. But mostly, I'm grateful that I learned a hard truth before it was too late. Family isn't about blood. It's about loyalty, trust, and love. Tim showed me more loyalty in one courageous act than my son showed me in 38 years. That's the family that matters, the one you choose, the one that chooses you back.